Tonopah, Nevada, 11:48 p.m. on the last night of October, where the Great Basin desert stretches out into a frigid, pitch-black sea of sand, the sky obscured by fine dust and thick clouds. On a desolate stretch of US 95, the old Dust Haven Roadhouse clings precariously to the desert, its dim yellow lights spilling outward. Outside, 18 Harley-Davidsons belonging to the IRON SERAPHs MC are lined up in 2 rows on the sandy lot. Engines just shut off but still radiating heat into the cold air. Caleb St. Maddox, president of the MC, leans against the weathered wooden wall lighting a cigarette, eyes narrowed against the wind whipping sand into his face. He had only intended to step out for a few minutes to catch his breath after 300 miles on the road, but then he saw something that made the entire world around him slow down. A small, trembling, staggering figure, hurtling through the darkness like a fledgling bird caught in a storm. Leah Alvarez, 7 years old, barefoot on the freezing sand, knees bleeding, dress torn off one shoulder, gasping like every breath hurts. She runs while constantly looking back, eyes wide with the primal terror of someone fleeing pure evil. The wind howls, carrying the sound of her tiny footsteps, and just as she's about to collapse, the metallic clatter of the Harleys echoes through the night, drawing her toward the only light she can still see. Leah trips hard in front of a Harley's headlight, falls to her knees, tiny hands clawing into the sand, then starts sobbing uncontrollably, the wind tearing her cries into pieces. Please, please help my mom. They're taking my mom's clothes off. The door of Dust Haven swings open. 18 bikers pour out almost in unison. Hard faces, covered in ink, the kind that look like nothing could ever faze them, yet they freeze solid. Gator lets his cigarette drop to the ground. Rook mutters a curse so low the wind steals it. Saint steps forward, kneels, and catches the shaking little girl. Leah's wrists still bear deep red rope marks. Around her neck are purple bruises shaped like fingerprints. Every detail hits Saint like memories rising from the hell of his own childhood. Leah grabs the edge of his heavy leather cut, clutching it like it's the last thread of life. They're holding my mom. Mom's screaming she's hurt. I got away, sir. They took mom's clothes, Her voice breaks, swallowed by the howling wind, but every word cuts the air like a blade. Red dust swirls around them, the bike's headlight illuminating Saint's face, harsh, silent, but in his eyes burns the fire. The whole MC knows, the kind that only ignites when he decides to protect someone at any cost. Saint asks nothing more. He scoops Leah up, wraps her in his huge leather cut like a shield, then lifts his head toward the black void of the desert, where the monsters who did this might still be lurking. His voice rings out, cold and sharp. No questions. Inside, now, all 18 bikers move instantly. No arguments, no hesitation, because every one of them understands when a child runs through the desert night, begging bikers for help, whatever's behind her is never small. Inside Dust Haven Roadhouse, yellowed lights spill over the old wooden floor and scarred tables. The door slams shut, keeping the desert wind out, but letting Leah's panic flood the room like another kind of storm. June drags a chair over, sits the girl down, wraps a blanket around her, and gently wipes the scrapes on her feet and hands with a warm cloth. Leah is still breathing hard, shoulders jerking, eyes red from crying. The bikers standing around say nothing, just watch her with eyes stretched tight as steel cable. After a moment, Leah tries to speak. Her voice cracks, but every word is clear, as if each one is stuck in her throat. My mom got off work at Elko Station. 3 men were waiting in the parking lot. They dragged her into a truck. June's hand freezes mid-wipe. The other bikers straighten like rods. Nobody moves. Leah clutches the edge of the blanket. They held Mom's arms. They ripped her shirt. They said they were gonna film it, sell it to customers. Nobody in the room shifts, no clinking glasses, no chairs scraping. Just the heavier breathing of men who are used to cruelty, but can't stomach this. Saint steps in front of Leah, crouches low, rests his hands on his knees so his eyes are level with hers. No pressure, no intimidation. You remember anything, sweetheart? License plate, anything on the truck? Leah nods slightly. June hands her a pencil. Even with shaking hands, Leah draws on the soggy bar napkin, a teal Ford F-150, with a decal of a skeletal wolf head on the back. Gator looks at the drawing and his jaw locks. Coyote's Ridge. Several heads dip, faces turning ice cold. Frost flips open a laptop on the bar, pulls up traffic cams on US 95. The pale blue screen lights the faces crowded around it. In minutes, Frost spins the screen toward St. Teal truck, exact decal, heading straight down Belmont Mine Road, 12 miles from Dust Haven. Saint immediately calls the Tonopah sheriff. The call lasts less than 10 seconds before a lazy, ice-cold voice answers. No deputies on duty. Probably just a family thing. Gator whips around and slams his fist on the table so hard the water glasses jump. Family thing my ass. They're stripping her. The other bikers start muttering short, vicious curses. Pure heat. Leah hears it and bursts into fresh, violent sobs. Hands over her head, shoulders curling in like the darkness is about to snatch her mom right in front of her. Saint pulls her into his arms, presses her head against the front of his cut. He holds her tight like a human shield, and in that moment the whole room goes unnaturally still, waiting for whatever he says next. Saint looks up, eyes sweeping every man in the club. No shouting, no raised voice, just the rock-solid certainty of a decision already made. Nobody touches that woman again. Tonight we ride. In the next breath, the entire MC moves as one. Chairs shoved back, zippers pulled up, gloves tightened, weapons checked with practiced flicks. The yellow lights glint off the IRON SERAPHs patches, dark wings on black, as every man heads for the door. The lot outside Dust Haven still echoes with the roar of IRON SERAPHs engines when Rook and Gator peel off from the pack, guns at north following the coordinates. Frost just sent from the traffic cams. The Nevada night is thick as ink, temperature plummeting so hard breath turns to white smoke. Under their tires, US 95 vibrates like it's urging them faster. After nearly 10 minutes chasing Belmont Mine Road, Rook throws up a hand to slow down. They turn onto a narrow dirt track, leading to an abandoned truck yard near the edge of the Tonopah test range, where the desert is so vast a screen can vanish in a few steps. Wind lashes the two bikers as they roll deeper into the maze of rusted containers and gutted trailers scattered across the gray wasteland. Gator kills his engine. The headlights die, leaving a silence so complete they can hear sand trickling over metal. Rook crouches, sweeps a small flashlight across the ground, catching fresh tire tracks torn into the sand. F-Series truck tires, matches the direction it was headed, Rook says, voice low and certain. They move deeper, following the weaving tracks to a cluster of faded red containers, doors creaking in the wind. Gator jerks his chin. Check it. They advance slow, shoulders tense, hands resting on gun grips. When the flashlight sweeps inside, the beam lands on something lying in the middle of the sand, a torn rag with dark, wet stains. Gator picks it up, holds it close to the light. Blood, he says quietly, voice flat but unable to hide the chill crawling up his spine. Rook takes a few more steps, then freezes at what glints next, a woman's button lying beside a long drag mark in the sand. Black button, coarse fabric, the kind bar waitresses wear. He picks it up, turns it in his fingers. Rosa wore these, Rook mutters, face tightening. Gator swings the light right and catches a tiny flash. He bends, lifts it from the cold sand, a pink nylon bracelet tied into a lopsided flower, the kind only a kid would make. At the knot, a scratched little blue bead. Gator stares at the tiny thing in his palm, then closes his fist around it. This is Lia's, he says, voice dropping low. Rook turns, sees the bracelet, eyes going dark. For a second, neither speaks. Men who've faced blood and violence without flinching can't handle the image of a little girl losing the bracelet she made for her mom in absolute desperation. They brought Rosa here, Rook says, almost to himself, but heavy enough to sink into the air. And staging it like this, he scans the dark containers, the drag marks, scattered footprints, signs of struggle in the sand. They've done this before. The air shifts. A single sharp crack rips through the night. The bullet buries itself in the sand less than a yard from Gator's boot, kicking up dust like a slap from the desert itself. Gator dives behind a rusted trailer. Rook spins and presses his back to the container, gun out faster than thought, reflex of men who've lived too long with danger. The silence after the shot is worse than the shot. Wind screams through the steel, but the shooter stays hidden. Only the desert's mockery echoes back. Rook listens close. Not trying to hit, he whispers. Warning shot. Gator grinds his teeth. Coyote's Ridge is watching the place. They know someone's tracking. Rook glances at the bracelet and button in Gator's hand, then keys the radio. Saint, you copy. Saint's voice comes back low and ice cold. Talk. Rook doesn't waste words. They were at the abandoned yard. Blood, button, Lia's bracelet, and they just fired a warning. He pauses a beat, then says the most important part. They're gonna torch the evidence tonight. On the other end, silence for a few seconds. But Rook-Nosed Saint is calculating speed, distance, numbers, time. Like every time he leads the club into a fight, there's no walking away from. Rook kills the radio, eyes locked on the black shapes in the desert. We gotta get out before they decide headshots. Gator nods hard, slips the tiny bracelet into his inside pocket like an oath. They back out of the container maze, footsteps fast and silent, Harleys roaring to life like a growl from deep underground. As they tear away, dust swirls behind them, covering the traces of crimes that only bikers, not cops, are willing to chase. Midnight in Nevada is quiet, but that quiet is about to shatter. Saint won't let a single piece of evidence, or a single woman, disappear into the desert dark. Less than 20 minutes from Tonopah by bike, an abandoned storage yard tucked beside a dirt trail leading into the low mountains east of town. It used to hold equipment for mining crews, but now there are only bullet-riddled sheet metal walls, tin roofs ripped into jagged strips by desert wind, and a darkness so thick it feels like spilled oil coating everything. A high-powered flashlight hanging from a crossbeam pours a blinding circle of light onto the damp concrete floor, while everything outside that circle drowns in pitch black like the mouth of a cave. Inside that circle, Rosa Alvarez is bound tight to an old metal chair, arms wrenched behind her back, wrists swollen red from the ropes, hair matted with sweat, lips purple from shock and terror. Half her shirt is torn away, exposing fresh bruises along her ribs. Every time she tries to shift, metal screeches against concrete, mixing with the sharp stink of rust and the sour reek of the men surrounding her. The Coyotes Ridge crew, 3 names that make women along the border lock their doors before sunset, are here. Bo Reddick, their leader, stands right in front of Rosa, tall, thick, carrying the ghost of military discipline he threw away long ago. Scruffy beard, arms covered in interlocking skeletal wolf tattoos like a pack of carrion eaters. Bo's eyes are dull and cold, the kind you only see in men who've stepped into the dark and never looked for a way back. Next to him is Trent Bones Vickers, skinny but fast and vicious as a switchblade. He grins every time his victim flinches. Behind them, Malcolm Pierce adjusts a phone mounted on an old tripod, the flash pulsing as it focuses on Rosa. A mobile hotspot blinks like the eyes of a predator about to strike. "Let's see how much my customers are paying for tonight." Malcolm chuckles, giving the ropes a test tug. Rosa jerks instinctively, but she's far weaker than the men crouched around her. Bones tilts his head, watching her like a dying animal. "Scream all you want, sweetheart. Out here it's just wolves, sand, and us." Rosa cries without sound, breath hitching. She forces air into her lungs and rasps, "Please, don't do this. Someone will find you." Bo leans down to eye level, his huge hand clamping her chin and forcing her head up. "Out here," he says, each word hitting like stone. "There's no cops, no neighbors, no one just passing by, no God, no way out, just us and that camera." He jerks his chin toward Malcolm, who's already started the live stream on a dark website where any sick bastard with cash can watch. Comments start scrolling across the screen, cold, mocking, demanding, laughing. Bones bursts out laughing. "Look at that, up for a few seconds and we already got dozens jumping in. Looks like we're making bank tonight." Rosa stops breathing, terror flooding her lungs like water. She thought she was used to empty desert highways, drunk customers at Elko Station, but this is beyond any nightmare. She shakes her head weakly. "My daughter, she'll find someone. Please." Bo folds his arms, gives a lifeless smile like a crack in rock. "That kid, if she actually got away, she's dead in the desert by now. It's cold tonight. No one lasts long." Malcolm adds, "And even if she finds somebody, who the hell's gonna mess with Coyotes Ridge? Cops avoid us." A clatter of metal. Malcolm's spare phone drops as he adjusts the angle. Nobody cares. The live stream is what matters. The money, the power, the feeling of being untouchable. Rosa drops her head, tears hitting the cold concrete. She thinks of Leah, her tiny girl with the pink bracelet, the child she told, "Never leave mommy." Now all she can hope is that her daughter ran far enough, or found someone with a shred of kindness. But Tonopah at night isn't a place where kindness is easy to find. And Coyotes Ridge is dead certain no one dares come here. Bo steps closer to the camera, knuckles cracking. "Showtime," he says, like he's directing a performance instead of a crime. "Big crowd tonight. I hate making them wait." The viewers start typing faster, filthier comments. Bones moves in, grabs Rose's hair. Malcolm sharpens the focus. The whole warehouse is nothing but the scrape of chains, the low hum of the recording phone, and sobs choked down to almost nothing. Outside, desert wind screams through the metal gaps, dragging long ribbons of sand across the concrete like ghosts. Coyote's Ridge thinks tonight will be like every other night. A lawless patch of desert, an empty shed no one visits. One more woman who disappears from the map. They don't know that not far away, the roar of a dozen Harleys is already taking shape. Dust Haven Roadhouse still holds the heat of engines that just left, but inside the bar everything is frozen in a way completely different from the bloody shadowed warehouse where Rosa is being held. June leads Lido to a ripped leather chair in the corner, sits her down, piles on more blankets, brings hot cocoa and a fresh warm cloth. The remaining bikers, men with tattooed arms thick as bridge cables, faces that have seen everything, stances like they could hold up the sky, stand back and watch Lido with looks that are hard to name. Not fear, not awkwardness, just the careful stillness of men who fight life for a living but don't know what to do with a child shaking because her mother is in danger. June kneels, gently wipes dust and scrapes from Lida's neck and forehead. "Does it hurt, baby?" Lida shakes her head, but her fingers stay clenched on the blanket's edge, eyes locked on the door like the monsters might walk in any second she looks away. To break the heavy silence, Gator, the biggest one in the room, disappears for a few minutes and comes back with a heavy plastic bag from the mini-mart next door. He drops it on the table with a thud that makes everyone jump. Inside, a marshmallow ice cream bar so sweet it could rot teeth just looking at it, a tiny yellow stuffed puppy and a child-sized black leather jacket. "I don't really know what kids like," Gator mutters, scratching his head, voice so low it's almost hoarse. Lida stares at the gifts, then up at Gator like she can't believe a man that huge just did this. June puts the stuffed puppy in Lida's lap. The little girl hugs it, and for the first time since she ran into Dust Haven, her breathing isn't frantic anymore. Just a little, but enough for the whole room to exhale. Frost, the coldest one of them all, steps back after sweeping the bar's security cams to make sure no one's watching. He sets a small pencil and paper in front of Lida. "If you want to draw, go ahead," he says, voice rough but not harsh. Lida looks at the paper, hesitates, then sets the puppy aside, picks up the pencil and starts drawing slowly, carefully, like drawing is the only thing keeping her from crying right now. When she turns the paper around and hands it to June, every biker moves closer. It's a tall man in a leather cut standing in front of a small child, shielding her. On his back, Lida drew two huge wings, black with glowing edges. At the bottom, in wobbly letters, Saint. Saint stands frozen. His eyes, usually sharp as tempered steel, soften for a second in a way only the people closest to him ever see. Not because of the name, because of the wings, because he knows exactly what they mean. 00022, the code his mother used for him when he was little, before she died in an accident. Saint still refuses to talk about. She used to call him her gatekeeper angel, the one who protects people nobody else will. Life taught him a different kind of protecting with fists, knives, steel. And now, on Lida's paper, he sees the little boy who used to sit beside his mom every night, believing he really did have wings. Saint crouches to Lida's level like he did outside. "You drew that?" Lida nods. He takes a slow breath. "Why the wings?" Lida answers immediately, like it's obvious, "Because you have them. You're coming to save my mom." The simple words hit the floor like a stone. The bikers around her, men society fears, men who've cracked skulls, men who live on the edge of the law, stand silent, no one able to smirk. Rook sniffs hard like desert dust got in his eye. Gator turns away. Frost slams the laptop shut without a word. Lida looks up, eyes red but no longer wild with panic. "Saint," her voice trembles. You will save my mom, right?" Saint looks at her in silence for a few seconds, not because he doesn't know what to say, but because he needs every word he's about to speak to be true, not comfort, but a promise. Then he places one hand on her shoulder, light but solid as rock. "Kid!" His voice drops low. "I'm not leaving that woman in their hands." Laya stares at him, like he's the only lifeline in the ocean. Saint keeps going, slow, clear, certain. "I'm not leaving your mom behind." And when those words land, every man left in the room, men once called monsters, criminals, outlaws, straightens up at once, hands on their cuts, eyes turning into something Coyote's Ridge has never seen, the eyes of men about to do the right thing and willing to leave anything behind if they have to. Because a little girl put her faith in them. And because they know out there in the dark, Rosa is waiting for someone who actually has wings. Dust Haven sank into a thick silence. As Saint returned to the large table in the center of the bar, pulled out a chair and scanned the faces waiting for orders. Gator stood with his arms crossed, his jacket still dusted with desert grit. Frost had flipped open his laptop the moment he walked in, the blue glow cutting across his razor-sharp cheekbones. Rook slipped his gloves back on, shifting his weight to his left leg like a man ready to charge. June stood beside Liver, one hand resting on the little girl's shoulder, watching Saint with the steady gaze of someone who knew time was slipping faster than anyone wanted to admit. "Frost," Saint said with a single nod. Frost didn't need anything more. He opened the mobile device tracking program, eyes locked on the scrolling lines of code. "You get anything off Bo yet?" Gator asked, impatience bleeding through. Frost tapped a few more commands, then spun the screen around. "He's dumber than I thought," Frost answered, voice low, his phone still running background GPS. "I've got the last ping." The screen showed a map of Nevada, tiny signal dots blinking. Frost zoomed in, layer by layer, desert, trails, abandoned quarries, until a red dot settled 30 miles northeast of Tonopah. "Beaumont Mill," Frost said. "Old mine, empty. No cameras, no population within 7 miles. Saint tilted his head, eyes darkening. "Perfect for them." Rook exhaled hard through his nose. "Plenty of ways in, but only one main way out. If they know company's coming, they'll shoot and bolt straight up the hill," Frost added. "But they don't know yet. And if they're planning to destroy evidence tonight like you said, they'll be busy." Saint looked around the table, placed both palms flat on the wood as if trying to cage the rage churning in his chest. He drew a deep breath. "We split into teams." The room went dead quiet, waiting. Saint spoke each word like he was nailing it to the floor. "Team 1, me and Rook. We circle around the back of the mill. There's a service entrance that leads into the machine room. Limited firing angles, but limited cover too. We move fast." Rook nodded instantly. Gator gave Rook the slight dip of respect a man gives another, who knows exactly what he's walking into. Saint turned to Frost. "Team 2, you and Gator. You cut power to the whole site. Pitch black. Coyotes Ridge loses their advantage. They won't be live streaming shit." Frost's lip curled, his hand twitching on the laptop. 1 minute, Saint continued. "Team 3, June. Take 4 more brothers. When the lights drop, we hit from 2 directions. You find Rosa and get her out first. Nobody breaks off. Nobody breaks off. Nobody loses sight of her." June answered with a sharp nod, but her eyes burned like fire. Saint turned to Leah, the kid standing in the corner clutching the stuffed animal Gator had given her. "You stay here with Manny and Doc. Manny locks the doors, Doc stands watch outside. Nobody gets in." Leah bit her lip but nodded. She wasn't crying anymore. Those red-rimmed eyes held only a thin thread of light, faith that these men in leather would really bring her mother back. Saint walked over, crouched to her level. "We're getting your mom out of there." Liker swallowed hard, voice tiny. "You promised." Saint answered. "I remember." He stood, turned back to the table. "Everybody gear up. We roll in 3 minutes." Nobody asked questions. Nobody argued. Men the world had written off as outlaws moved like a trained strike team. Rook slapped a magazine home, checked his weapon. Gaturter zipped his jacket, tied a bandana around his neck, the rasp of fabric against skin sounding like a call to war. Frost snapped the laptop shut with a decisive clack. June tied her hair high, stare fixed on the door. Outside, Nevada night fog thickened, dust motes glittering under the yellow lights. They stepped out of the bar like they were walking onto a stage the outside world would never understand. The moment a vow becomes action. The Harleys waited in a silent row of steel beasts. Saint swung onto his FXDWG, slid the key in. An instant later the engines detonated the quiet, a deep guttural roar that shook the ground. Rook fired up his soft tail. Gator and Frost followed. Then every remaining bike came alive at once, a mechanical wolf pack howling into the night. White-blue headlights sliced through the desert haze, carving the path ahead. Saint pulled on his helmet, glanced back at Dust Haven one last time. Through the glass he saw Liker behind the curtain, hugging her stuffed animal, eyes locked on the departing bikes. That look, fear, hope, waiting, hit Saint harder than any bullet. He faced forward, rolled the throttle. Go! The pack tore out of the lot. Red dust exploding behind them like a miniature storm. The Harleys formed a long black line cutting through the night, engines blending with the wind into a sound that told the monsters at Belmont Mill their time was running out. No one spoke, but everyone knew. Tonight the Coyotes' Ridge wouldn't be hiding their evil behind desert wind and darkness anymore. Because the darkness was bringing something they never expected, an entire pride of leather-clad angels ready to rip the doors off that abandoned mine if they had to. The dirt track into Belmont Mill was black as a desert fracture, only the Harley's headlights slashing trembling beams across the slippery sand. As they neared the abandoned site, Saint raised a fist. Every engine died at once. The sudden silence felt suffocating. Night fog swallowed the rock crevices, killing visibility. They pushed the bikes the last stretch, moving like ghosts over cold ground. Belmont Mill rose out of the dark, rusted steel skeletons stabbing the sky, corrugated walls pocked with old bullet holes, warehouse doors banging in the wind with a spine-chilling clatter. Saint signaled the split. Rook stuck to him, taking the service path around back. Gator and Frost belly crawled to the trench beside the main power box, wire cutters glinting under faint moonlight. June and her 4 bikers took cover near the front entrance, ready to breach on cue. No one made a sound, just wind whistling through metal, and held breath. Frost pried the power box lid with practiced ease, silver cables gleaming. He gave Gator a tiny nod. 5 seconds, Frost whispered. 1, 2, 3, 4, cut. The jaws clamped. A heavy thud echoed underground. The entire mill plunged into total darkness, as if someone had suddenly choked its life out. Interior lights died. Their live stream cut instantly. And in that exact moment Saint whispered, "Go." He and Rook charged the back stairs. Rook snapped the rusted lock with one brutal yank. They slipped inside. Stale oil, metal and the sour stink of terror rising from the dark. Ahead lay a narrow corridor to the central room where Coyotes' Ridge held Rosa. Noise spilled out. Chairs kicked over. Bones cursing. Malcolm screaming as the live stream feed went black. At the front, June counted silently. 3, 2, 1. The door exploded inward. Bikers poured in like a steel flood, flashlight beams sweeping the pitch black, making the men inside jump. Wode swung his light up, mouth opening. "What the—" He never finished. One of June's guys drove a shoulder straight into him at full force. In the shaking flashlight glow, June scanned and hissed, "Rosa, where's Rosa?" No answer. Just the soft scrape of chain from the room at the far end. June sprinted, smashed the padlock with a crowbar, door flying open. Rosa slumped in a chair, head down, breathing so shallow it might stop any second. Her shirt hung in shreds, one shoulder purple-black, eyes swollen shut. When June pulled the chair toward her, Rosa let out a broken sob, body jerking like ice had touched her skin. "Laya, my daughter." June gripped her shoulders gently. "We're here to get you out. It's over. It's over." But the second June hauled Rosa to her feet, heavy footsteps pounded behind them. Trent Bones Vickers burst from the shadows like a cornered animal, swinging a length of steel pipe down with everything he had. Saint appeared from the right like lightning. One hand seized Bones's wrist, twisted it back until a dry crack split the air. The pipe clanged to the floor, Bones howling in shock and pain. Saint didn't pause, spun, drove an elbow into the man's ribs hard enough to fold him, then swept his legs out from under him. Bones hit the concrete back first, air blasting out of him. Before he could roll, Saint dropped a knee on his chest, eyes cold as blades. "Stay down." Bones couldn't move. Across the warehouse, Malcolm panicked and bolted for the small hatch leading uphill. He screamed into the void. "Bo, they're here." Rook fired a warning shot that stitched the floor beside Malcolm's boot. He slipped, scrambled, kept crawling. Saint shot June a look. "Get Rosa out." June and 2 bikers half-carried Rosa toward the main doors where headlights outside painted shimmering paths of light. At the same moment, Bo Reddick, the Coyotes' Ridge leader, had already vanished from the central room. He didn't fight, didn't try to save his men. He did what cowards always do, ran. Saint spotted the open hatch. Rook understood instantly, took off after Bo's shadow disappearing up the rocky slope. But before Saint could follow, gunfire erupted like it was ripping the air apart. Bullets sparked off steel beams, spitting orange sparks. Suppressive fire from the back. Frost yelled from the dark, blind shooting to block escape. Saint shouted, "Fall back." June had Rosa almost to the main exit, but the two bikers behind took hits of flying splinters as rounds came from deeper inside. Gator posted at the door, yanked Rosa behind a rotting wooden wall, bellowing, "Move, clear the way." The remaining bikers formed a wall, returning fire that forced the last coyotes low behind steel drums. Inside the pitch-black warehouse, gunfire echoed off metal like upside-down thunder. Desert wind threaded through wall gaps, swirling gun smoke into blind clouds. "June, check Rosa," Gator roared. June pressed fingers to Rosa's neck, still breathing, but barely. "Go," Saint ordered, giving them no half-second to hesitate. They burst outside, Nevada night opening like an ink sea. Harley headlights flared, turning red sand gold. One biker slung Rosa across his back piggy style, June running beside him steadying her. Saint brought up the rear, firing behind his cover. When the whole crew reached the bikes, engines were already hot. "Go, go," Gator roared. The Harleys thundered to life at once, steel beasts waking in the middle of a battlefield. June clung to Rosa behind another rider, arms locked tight. Rook vaulted onto his bike, chest heaving, face caked in dust and blood. "Bows up the hill," Saint answered, voice ice cold. "We'll deal with him later. Get Rosa home first." The pack roared away, gunfire behind them still cracking like night crows. But the farther they got, the smaller the shots became, swallowed by the rolling thunder of Harley engines kicking up a red dust storm across the desert night. And when the taillights finally vanished from Coyote's Ridge's sight, only Belmont Mill remained, drowned in absolute darkness, proof of a night they thought no one would come for. But they were wrong, dead wrong. Bull Reddick fled Belmont Mill, in a mix of desperation and madness, boots sliding on the loose gravel down the hillside. He didn't look back, didn't dare. The Harley thunder was fading, but that rolling roar still wrapped around his skull like a curse. He threw himself into the old pickup hidden under a mesquite tree, slammed the steering wheel, and tore away reeking of burnt gas and terror. One thing he knew for sure, tonight Coyote's Ridge had lost control. And in his world, losing control meant you were about to lose your life. He fumbled the phone on, hands shaking so bad he almost dropped it. He opened contacts, names he swore he'd never have to call: North Ridge Boys, Burned Badgers, Pine Hollow Crew, Raven's Den Riders, small time, vicious outfits famous for taking money to hurt people and never asking who was right. Bull hit speaker, voice raw and ragged. "Iron Seraphs bikers. They hit the place I was keeping the woman. They tore us apart. I want them gone from Tonopah." A sneer came back over the line. "Price?" Bull ground his teeth. 50 grand for Saint's head. 20 for any other patch. Short silence. Then the North Ridge voice, casual as ordering pizza. "Done. Send coordinates." Minutes later, the other 3 crews texted back confirmation. The desert's criminal network smelled blood, and Bull didn't have to wait long to see the fallout of that insane call. Meanwhile, back at Dust Haven Roadhouse, June and 2 bikers were half-carrying Rosa inside. She was barely conscious, lips purple, fingers digging into June's arm like it was the last rope keeping her alive. Doc rushed out, laid Rosa on the long couch, pulled a blanket over her. Liza had fallen asleep on the table, still clutching her stuffed animal, until the door slammed open and she jerked awake. She saw her mother's broken body and crumpled. June caught her before she hit the floor. "Mommy, Mom." Rosa couldn't open her eyes, but tears slid down her temples when she heard her daughter's voice. Saint walked in last, face caked in dust, eyes sharp as honed steel. He looked at Leah, then at Rosa, and the first flicker of relief died the instant every outside light went black. A second later, glass exploded. "Down," Saint roared. Leah didn't have time to process before June yanked her behind the bar and shoved her head to the floorboards. Doc killed the inside lights. Gator snatched the shotgun from behind the bar. Rook pressed flat against the wall, and Frost dove to the shattered window to gauge distance. Engines snarled outside like big animals circling prey. 6 pickups formed a half moon in front of the bar, headlights blinding the doors like an execution squad. Men jumped down, rifles glinting. Not cops, not locals, not even Coyote's Ridge. These were Bull's hired guns, every kind of ink, every kind of cut from outlaw clubs that drifted to Nevada's dead corners, every one of them overflowing with violence and short on humanity. A gravel voice boomed in, "Iron Syrups, send Saint out." I came for his head, Gator cursed. Motherfucker. North Ridge boys. Frost yanked Saint down behind the wall. They're shooting like they want a turkey shoot, not a warning. Saint looked up, face calm as stone. He glanced at the bar where Leah was curled up, shaking with every crack of gunfire. Each round made her flinch, fingers clawing June's jeans. Uncle Saint, she whimpered. They came back. June hugged Leah's head to her chest. It's okay, baby. It's okay. But her voice shook. A round punch through the wood, shredded the tabletop, sent splinters flying. Rook yelled, "They're pushing the right door." 3 men, one's climbing the roof. Saint stood tall. His eyes moved from the bar to Rosa to the brothers gripping weapons to the headlights outside. He didn't shout over the gunfire. He just spoke, voice heavy as a desert storm about to break. They want to bring war here. He racked his pistol. Fine. He stepped into the open so every brother could see the look of a man who'd run out of patience. They want war? He bit each word. Then war is what they'll get. Rook echoed him with a crooked grin. If they wanted to fight a whole club, they should have brought more guys. Gator barked a laugh sharp as a blade. Frost yanked the curtain shut, killing the glare, leaving the room in dim light that made everything feel like it was igniting again. Leah lifted her tear-streaked face. Red eyes locked on Saint like he was the only wall between her and the dark. Suddenly Frost's radio crackled. Rook had left the channel open. North Ridge boys, burned badgers, big brothers all rolling in. They want this MC wiped off the map. Saint heard every word. He straightened, adjusted the blood-crusted leather on his shoulder. His face no longer looked like a tired biker after a fight. It looked like a verdict about to be carried out. He took one last breath and gave the order. Everybody to positions. He looked around one final time, eyes stopping on Leah, the kid who saw wings on him. They want a war, he said, voice low but ringing like an engine turning over. They'll get one. Gunfire still ripped the night around Dust Haven when Saint signaled the pullout to get Rosa and Leah to safety. June hugged Leah tight, one arm supporting Rosa, the other yanking open the back door to the narrow alley where Doc and Manny had 2 Harleys with sidecar rigs ready. Gator fired covering shots as a burned badger's truck charged, tires chewing wet sand and sliding sideways. Rook kicked over a dumpster for temporary cover and yelled, "Go, Saint and I will hold these assholes." June didn't hesitate. She lifted Leah into the sidecar, then turned to help Rosa. Rosa was almost gone, head lolling against June's shoulder, breath thin as thread. Leah saw her mother's ghost-white face and started sobbing, trembling fingers touching Rosa's cold hand. "Mommy, open your eyes." June kept her voice steady, even though her heart was jackhammering. "Leah, listen. We're taking Mommy where people can help. Hold on tight, okay?" Saint burst in from the front, slid to a stop beside June, face black with powder residue. He looked at Leah first, then Rosa, like he was double-checking why he was still standing in the middle of hell. "Ready?" June nodded hard. Doc fired up the second rig. Saint turned to Leah. Even with chaos exploding behind them, he dropped to one knee so they were eye to eye. Leah threw herself at him, clinging to his cut like it was the last solid thing on earth. "Uncle Saint," she choked out between sobs. Don't die. Mommy needs you. I need you." Another round smacked the wall above their heads. Saint didn't flinch. He took off his own lid and set it on Leah's head. The helmet swallowed her, tilting sideways, covering half her face. He held the sides so she had to look straight at him. "Listen to me," he said low, every word heavy as an oath. "I'm coming back. I promise." Leah swallowed her tears, big red eyes wide, burning his words into her heart. Saint brushed her cheek, then put his other hand on June's shoulder. "Go." June nodded. Wind whipped hard as she twisted the throttle. Both rigs shot into the darkness, tires kicking red dust under a razor-thin moon. Ludia looked back over June's shoulder, saw Saint standing in gunsmoke, his silhouette tall as a pillar in the storm. As the little convoy tore down the narrow dirt track, Saint, Rook, and Gator held the rear, firing, keeping the burned badgers and North Ridge boys from following. More than 3 miles later, Dust Haven was just a faint glow behind them. The road to Tonopah Fire Station appeared under scattered streetlights, a small town, but its firehouse was one of the few things that actually worked out here. June braked hard at the bay doors. They rolled open the second they heard engines. 4 firefighters stepped out, reflective stripes still smelling of smoke and diesel from a long shift. "What the hell?" The captain started, then saw Rosa and went wide-eyed. June nearly screamed. "She's been beaten, kidnapped. We need medics now." 2 firefighters rushed forward, lifted Rosa onto a stretcher. Lugia jumped down after them, grabbing her mom's hand, crying without sound. The captain crouched to Lee's level. "You're safe now, kid. She is too. We got this." June stood beside them, hand on Lee's shoulder, heart still pounding to the echo of gunfire. Another firefighter said, "Pull the bikes inside. Nobody gets in here but us." Lugia choked through tears. Uncle Saint said he'll come back. He promised. June knelt, pulled her close. "You believe him, right?" Lugia nodded. "Then he will." Out on the highway, the sound of distant engines faded like the vow still rolling across the desert. Saint was heading back to the fight. The Nevada night opened like a different door when Saint, Rook and Gator peeled away from Dust Haven after making sure Rosa and Leah were safe inside Tonopah Fire Station. The stretch south from town was black as ink, only the steady growl of Harleys reminding each other they were still alive and still had a war to finish. At the edge of Highway 95, Saint raised a fist to stop. Desert winds slapped their faces, carrying fine dust and the smell of burnt powder still clinging to their cuts. Saint flipped up his lid, pulled out the encrypted club phone, the kind only used when lives were on the line, the kind every biker in the region would get instantly, whether they were asleep, riding long haul, or hiding in some garage wrenching on a bike. Saint hit the red button. An IRON Seraphs emergency beacon shot out like a metal ghost call, a low vibration in every speaker but heavy as an oath. Code 07. Coyotes Ridge, woman taken. Kid begging for help. Need every patch that can hear me. 5 seconds later, dots started blinking on the map. Dozens of clubs receiving. Then one by one, whole chapters checked in. Silver Ghosts. Reno Division. Desert Saints. Carson City. Ridge Reapers. Hawthorne. Black Yaks. Fallon. Rook stared at the screen, said nothing. But his eyes lit up in the dark. Gator just half smiled. Coyotes are fucking done. Saint killed the screen, looked out over the endless black desert sea. "Let's ride," he said. And they turned toward Walker Lake where the clubs had agreed to mass. As they neared the lake, the ground began to shake. At first like far-off thunder, then like jets. But when they crested the rise and looked down at the mirror black water, what appeared changed the color of the night itself. From all 4 compass points of Nevada, headlights started popping up in clusters, then rivers, then endless lines of light. The combined roar of engines became one sound so loud the ground under their boots trembled like it might split. Walker Lake lit up under the headlights of over 180 Harleys, Indians, victories, triumphs, from every outlaw club that still believed in something, all converging on one spot. Silver Ghosts rolling in from the north, silver jackets flashing like ghosts in the wind, Desert Saints from the west, red angel patches glowing. Ridge Reapers out of Hawthorne. Skinhead enforcers covered in ink who hit first and never talked. Black Yaks running 2 by 2, deep exhaust notes pounding like war drums. They all slowly formed a massive half-circle in front of Saint. Rook looked around and breathed. "Jesus, I haven't seen this many since Anaconda 2016. Gator clapped his shoulder. "This ain't a club fight. This is an answer." Saint stepped forward into the glare of hundreds of headlights. Cold lake wind cut his face, carrying water, oil, and desert dust. June appeared behind him, having raced back from the fire station to join the line. Lia's tear tracks still on her shirt. Saint looked at every face waiting for him to speak. No gunfire here. No yelling. Just the silence of men and women who lived by 2 things only: honor and promises you never break. Saint didn't shout. He didn't know how. He just spoke in that low, gravel voice Nevada highways had burned into him. "Tonight," he started, eyes sweeping the entire arc of riders. "A little kid ran into Dust Haven barefoot, face covered in blood, begging us for help." Low growl from the Desert Saints, someone grinding teeth. Saint went on. "Her mom was taken by Coyotes Ridge. They ripped her clothes off, beat her, live streamed it for cash." An angry roar rolled through the crowd like fire on gasoline. Saint raised one hand and they went dead quiet instantly. "We got the woman out." But Coyotes didn't stop. They called North Ridge boys, burned Badgers, Pine Hollow. Every lowlife they could pay to come shoot up Dust Haven. A biker bellowed from the Silver Ghosts. "Those dogs." Saint took one more step, voice dropping lower but cutting sharper. "They thought they could touch women. Beat. They thought they could make kids cry. Beat. They thought they could shoot up a bar where bikers drink." Saint clenched his fists, eyes blazing. But the worst mistake they made, he lifted his head, was thinking we'd let it slide. Every engine revved once in perfect unison, a single thunderclap answer. Saint half-turned so the night wind whipped his hair, and every club's headlights reflected in his eyes. "We," Saint said slow, voice deep as thunder, "do not hurt women." The crowd roared back, not cheers but engines answering. "We," he continued, "protect them." June slammed a fist over her heart. Rook gripped his bars. Gator snarled at the sky. Saint finished, voice slicing the air in half. "And tonight," he pointed one arm toward the mountains where Coyote's Ridge was hiding. "We hunt coyotes." Nearly 200 bikes roared at once. The ground shook. Walker Lake rippled with waves. The Nevada night rose like the mouth of a beast waking up. Not for hate, not for bounty money, but because a 7-year-old clutching a stuffed animal 10 miles away in a fire station had looked at a biker the whole world misunderstood and called him an angel. And when a child chooses a biker to believe in, an entire army stands up. The meet ended not with applause but with the metallic symphony of every rider pulling on their helmets at the exact same second. Headlights flared, cutting through the desert dust like blades. The roar of nearly 200 bikes at Walker Lake was still echoing when Frost climbed onto the hood of an old Chevy, flipped open his laptop and fired up a mini projector that threw a pale blue glow straight onto the sheer rock face of the hillside. The light tore through the darkness, revealing a full map of the Tonopah Hawthorne Goldfield area spread out like a modern battlefield. Wind off the lake whipped the backs of the silent bikers, every eye locked on that map like soldiers about to walk into a kill zone. Frost turned, plugged in Bo's phone, the one he'd hacked from minute one, and 5 pulsing red dots instantly appeared. "Listen up," he shouted over the wind, the IRON SERAPHs patch on his shoulder glowing faintly in the projector light like dim wings. Coyote's Ridge split their operation across 5 locations. Hit just Reddick Ranch and they'll scatter to the others and regroup. If we want this over tonight, he tapped a key. The 5 red dots pulsed harder. We hit everywhere at once. A Desert Saints rider spat his cigarette into the dirt. 5 spots, less than I thought. Frost pointed to the first dot, Trailer Park, US 6, a shithole off the highway where the Forgotten lived, where coyotes kept victims they hadn't processed yet. Second dot, abandoned garage, Goldfield. They mod vehicles and stash weapons here, Frost said. Also where they mass up before a job. Third dot flashed Blue Claw Storage, a maze of old containers. They use this place to threaten and extort. Blood was found on Unit 17 last year. Fourth dot, abandoned gas station, mile marker 129. Swap out point after grabs. Every swapped vehicle means one more person disappears. Finally, Frost tapped the biggest dot, deep in the red dirt east, Red Dick Ranch, main base, Bo's Hole, where they keep the hard ones, where they live stream. No one spoke, no growls, no curses, just heavy silence, like the desert itself was holding its breath. Saint stepped forward into the projector light. "We split," he said, voice low but carrying. "Nobody rides alone." The clubs moved into clusters like a trained army, headlights behind them turning every patch into steel statues in the night. Team 1, Trailer Park US 6, Silver Ghosts plus 5 IRON SERAPHs. Mission free anyone. Still breathing. No evidence destroyed. An old silver-bearded ghost said, "We know that park. Real wolves stay out. Leave it to us." Team 2, Goldfield Garage, Desert Saints plus Ridge Reapers. Mission: destroy every vehicle and weapon coyotes could use to run. A Reaper grinned cold, ripping tape off his fists like stepping into the ring. Smash a garage. Easy. Team 3, Blue Claw Storage, Black Yaks plus 4 IRON SERAPHs. Mission: get inside. Seize laptops, phones, any device with old live streams. The Yaks said nothing, just a simultaneous throttle blip for yes. Team 4, abandoned gas station, mile marker 129. Pine Hollow crew plus 6 independents. Mission: block movement. No vehicle swaps. A Pine Hollow wearing a German helmet laughed. Killing engines is our specialty. Team 5, Reddick Ranch, IRON SERAPHs, plus mixed 20-man support. Saint pointed at the biggest red dot like he was pointing straight into Bo's chest. "This one's ours." Gator flexed a tattooed, skull-covered arm. "Good." Rook clicked the safety off. Eyes black. Bo's not running again. June fired up her bike, headlights catching her red-rimmed eyes burning with purpose. "He's paying for everything he did to Rosa." A Black Yak nodded. Nevada gets a new howl tonight. When teams were set, Frost threw the map sky high one last time so everyone could burn it into memory. We hit it exactly 1:40 a.m. 5 minutes late, and coyotes can shift or stream again. No more victims. Saint turned to the 180 riders in their half circle. Tonight every team holds position. No heroes. Nobody breaks formation. Lake wind snapped leather. The ground trembled as engines began warming one by one, building a drumbeat of thunder. Saint raised 2 fingers. The signal every club knew. When the beam shoots straight up, every team rolls. Frost fired a green laser straight into the black sky like an arrow through clouds, and like some mechanical god gave the order. 180 bikes fired to life at once. The sound wasn't engines anymore. It was an earthquake. Wind reversed. Dust spun in rings around the formation. The horizon of righteous fury rippled outward like a shock wave. Trailer Park team shot north up US 6. Goldfield team roared south, headlights carving the dust. Blue Claw peeled east. Gas station team fanned out like blades. And Team 5, led by Saint, hammered throttles straight toward Reddick Ranch, Coyotes Ridge's heart. June rode tight on Saint's left, wind ripping her hair but her eyes never blinked. Behind them the mixed 20 locked formation, turning Team 5 into the spearhead of the whole war. A desert Saint, passing Saint, yelled over the roar. They made a woman bleed. They scared a kid. Tonight they pay. Saint didn't waste breath. He just said, tonight, nobody hides. 180 bikes spread across the Nevada desert, headlights streaking like rivers of fire toward 5 targets. And far away in the dark of Reddick Ranch, Bo Reddick still had no idea he was about to face something that had never existed in his life. An army of bikers summoned by a child's cry for help. The Nevada night was no longer quiet. It was shaking with the 5-point strike about to land on Coyotes Ridge like a verdict that could not be appealed. The Nevada desert tore open in 5 directions when the all-out assault began. But east toward Reddick Ranch, a different sound clawed out of the darkness. A Ford F-150 engine screaming like a beast trying to outrun death. Bo Reddick floored it, rear tires spinning red dust into huge spirals. He wasn't waiting for his crew, wasn't calling more guns, wasn't holding the ranch. The only thing left in him was primal fear, knowing 200 bikers were spreading across the desert to hunt him for real. Fuck, Bo snarled, knuckles white on the wheel. His escape zigzagged, blasting through boulders and old mine pits he once used to drag victims and hide bodies. He knew these trails better than anyone had made the darkness his friend. Tonight the darkness turned on him, because behind him, exactly 40 Harleys were closing like a pack of steel predators summoned from the earth itself. Exhaust thundered, tires screamed over gravel, bikes slammed rocks and kept coming. Every time Bo glanced in the mirror he didn't see sky. He saw white-blue headlights linked into one giant serpent opening its jaws. Leading the chase was Saint, face blank, eyes locked on the F-150 a few hundred yards ahead. Rook rode the hardest line, scanning terrain while matching speed. Gator held the right flank, desert wind whipping his face but he never blinked. Cold night, freezing wind, metal shrieking, but no throttle eased off. Bo cut hard north, trying to break the pack, not knowing that direction led straight into the old Silver Peak mine. Treacherous, steep, loose rock everywhere. He floored it, hoping the slopes would shield him, but the 40 bikes split like water through cracks. Frost's voice cracked over comms. He's turning 27, steep drop ahead. Saint, hold throttle, don't let him climb. 40 pipes answered with one massive roar. The F-150 fish-tailed on the first turn, sparks spitting where the undercarriage scraped rock. Rook leaned hard, hugging the edge, almost floating over broken stone. One rider behind lost traction, bike sliding toward the ravine, but 2 brothers grabbed him and hauled him back. Bo looked in the mirror and lost his mind. They were still there. You crazy bastards, he ducked behind the wheel. You're fucking demons. But no matter how loud he screamed, no matter how hard he shook, Harley thunder drowned the panic in his chest. When Bo shot into a narrow slot between 2 rock walls, Gator launched over a ledge and a sharp crack rang out. A stray round from the ranch grazed his arm, blood spraying in a line. Gator wobbled, bike tipping, almost down. Frost yelled Gator's hit. Gator roared, righted the bike, blood running down his arm into his glove. I'm still riding. That fucker's not getting away. Saint glanced half a second but never lifted. The desert night didn't allow stops. 40 bikes stormed the old mine. Ground split into razor cuts, loose rock that could shred tires in a heartbeat. Then Bo made his mistake. He shot out the last rock slot expecting open trail. Instead he hit a wide, flat playa perfect for Rook. Rook pulled his lid down, leaned until the peg scraped, front braked and whipped the bike into a perfect drift, red dust arcing like a rainbow. His Harley slid sideways, blocking the truck's nose. Bo panicked, slammed brakes, tires locked, F-150 fishtailing in a blinding cloud. "Move, you lunatic!" Bo screamed and floored it, aiming straight for Rook. Rook barely jinked right, almost jumping clear. But the instant the truck was about to crush him, pipes detonated behind Bo. Out of the red cloud, Saint shot like a living bullet. He stood on the pegs, bike leaned hard right, front wheel kissing the truck door. Saint let go one hand, cocked it, then punched straight through the driver window. Crash! Glass exploded. The blow landed clean on Bo's temple. He let out one short scream and folded sideways. Truck spinning out, slamming sideways into rock, dust exploding like a bomb. Engine died. The desert went dead quiet for 3 full seconds. Only Saints, Rooks, Gators, and dozens more bikes rolling in. Saint stopped nose to hood with the F-150, stepped off slow like he'd just come from court, not a high-speed chase. He yanked the door open. Bo tumbled out, face shredded with blood and glass, babbling half-conscious, "You ain't cops." Saint looked down at him, eyes darker than the night. "No," he said flat, "we're bikers." He grabbed Bo's collar, hauled him upright. 40 riders formed a perfect circle, headlights blazing on Bo like a caged animal at the end of the hunt. Saint spoke his last words before handing him off to the second team rolling up, "And out here, we don't let evil run." Bo didn't answer. He collapsed into the red dirt, out cold, surrounded by 40 Harleys thundering like Judgment Day, the sound that ended a chase he thought he could survive. The Nevada night looked down on Bo like it was looking at a corpse already marked. Bo was dragged off the red Silver Peak dirt when a mixed team of 12 bound him with heavy-duty zip cuffs and tossed him in the bed of a Silver Ghost's pickup. His face was a mess of blood and dust, one eye swollen shut, breathing in ragged bursts. Nobody spoke to him. Nobody needed to. He was no longer Coyote Ridge's leader, just a breathing body on its way to people with badges. When the column left Silver Peak for Highway 95, headlights linked into one long river, lighting the road like an honor escort for a sinner delivered to justice. At the entrance to Tonopah Fire Station, where Rosa and Leah were holed up, Saint signaled the stop. "Ghosts, take him to Carson. Turn him straight over to state police." "Not Tonopah Sheriff," Saint stressed. "They're in bed with Coyote Ridge." Silver Ghosts nodded. "We got it." The truck carrying Bo turned north, while the IRON Seraphs column slowed, engines dropping to a low growl as they rolled into the fire station lot. Inside the bay, the bright white lights felt almost peaceful, like a different planet that never knew a real war had just happened outside. Leah sat by the stretcher still hugging her yellow stuffed animal. When she heard Harley's, her head snapped up like a spring. "Uncle Saint." She bolted before June could grab her. Saint stepped inside, and Leah slammed into him, arms locked around his waist like she was scared he'd blow away in the desert wind. "Uncle Saint, you came back." Her voice broke, throat tight. Saint crouched, wrapped her up, big hand on her back, pulling her close. "Told you I would," he said quiet, softer than he'd been the whole story. "I promised." Leah looked up, tears hitting his cut in hot drops. "Don't leave again. Mommy needs you. I need you." Saint didn't answer right away. He brushed her cheek. Then June walked up, holding something that made the whole bay go silent. A tiny black leather vest, half-size, stitched from the same material as IRON Seraph's cuts. On the back, small wings, and below them, embroidered little seraph. Leah stared at it like she was seeing herself. June knelt, handed it over. "We figured, you earned this." Leah clutched the vest to her chest, little fingers tracing every stitch. Then she looked at Saint. "Do I have a family now?" The room froze. Rook turned away, rubbing the bridge of his nose. Gator took a deep breath and pretended to check the bandage on his arm. Frost shook his head like clearing red eyes from the laptop glow. Saint knelt again, hands on her shoulders. "Yeah, kid," he said slow. Every word hammered in. "You do." Leah burst into tears and hugged him again. The little vest pressed between them like a new oath carved deep. Rosa, weak enough that firefighters had to help her walk, stood anyway. She watched Leia clinging to Saint, then looked at Saint with the eyes of someone rescued for the first time without a price. She walked over, legs shaking but voice clear. "Thank you. Nobody ever fought for me like this." Saint caught her arm when she swayed. "Nothing to thank," he said. "Nobody gets to do that to you." Rosa put her hand over the IRON SERAPHs patch on his chest. "You don't know. I thought I was dead. Thought I'd never see my daughter again." Tears came, but they tasted like life now, not despair. "Thank you for bringing me back." Saint didn't hug her, just leaned close enough so she knew it wasn't polite talk. "You're Leia's mom," he said. "That's all we needed to fight." Behind them the IRON SERAPHs line stood quiet, giants in the white light, still covered in red dust, scratches, blood and chain grease. But under the fire station fluorescence they didn't look like outlaws anymore. They looked like warriors home from a righteous war. Leia slipped the little vest on. It hung loose on her shoulders too long at the waist, but she gave the first full smile of the whole story. Saint watched her like she was the only light in a long black night. And in that moment he understood. 40 bikes tearing across the desert, 180 massing at Walker Lake. None of it was vengeance or payback. It was because a barefoot kid ran through the dark and believed in men wearing leather. That belief, plain and simple, had awakened an army of steel. Western Nevada sky was bleeding thin orange dusk when Saint walked out of Tonopah fire station. Desert wind whipped hard, rolling dust ribbons across the concrete in front of the bay. Then the engines started. One, then overlapping. Then one single sound so loud it rattled glass. 200 bikes from IRON SERAPHs and every allied club lining up to leave. They formed two endless rows from the firehouse, all the way to the highway, headlights glowing like hundreds of eyes watching US 95 sink into sunset. Leia ran to the door in her little seraph vest, Rosa right behind holding her daughter's hand. Slow, trembling but trembling from gratitude now, not fear. Saint tilted his head at Leia, eyes softer than almost anyone had ever seen them. "Come here, kid." He scooped her up and set her on the seat of his FXDWG, not to ride, just so she could feel the spot the whole world had fought to protect tonight. Leia put her hands on the tank, eyes huge at the hundreds of headlights roaring in front of her. Saint kept one hand on her back, steady, and said, "So you know what it feels like to have an army at your back." Leia turned, lips shaking. "Just 1 minute," Saint said low and warm. "So you know from now on, you never run alone in the dark again." Rosa reached up and touched Leia's leg on the bike, eyes full, not believing the sight. Men society called dangerous, reckless outcasts, today standing in perfect formation guarding her daughter like she was the most important child alive. She looked at Saint, voice barely a whisper. "They look like legends walking out of a book," Saint answered without turning, "but loud enough. No legends, just people who saw evil and decided not to look away." Leia laid her tiny hands on the bars, felt the cold metal, then looked down the road where 200 riders stood like steel statues ready to move on one command. She whispered, "Uncle Saint, are there really monsters in the world?" Saint put both hands on her shoulders, turned her to face him. Sunset painted her hair gold, her eyes reflecting every headlight behind her. "Kid," he said slow, words forged in fire. "Yeah, there are monsters." Leia dropped her gaze, but Saint lifted her chin with one finger. "But as long as we're riding these roads," he glanced back at the column. Every headlight flared bright at once, turning the desert white-blue like giant wings. "You'll never have to face them alone." Leia started crying, not from fear, from being seen, protected, loved. Rosa pulled her daughter close, then looked at Saint, eyes red. "Thank you, from the bottom of my heart. No one ever fought for me like this." Saint just rested a hand on her shoulder and nodded once. "You're Leia's mom, that's enough." Then he climbed on, fired up. His Harley spoke first, deep, low, punching straight into the ground, and like an invisible string pulled them. 199 more engines answered. Tonopah shook. Headlights carved a white road like a sword aimed down US 95. Saint jerked his chin toward Leia and Rosa. "Inside, rest. This part's ours now." Leia hugged him one last time through tears. "I'll wait for you, Uncle Saint." He nodded. "I know." Rook rolled up yelling over the thunder. "Ready." Gator, arm bandaged, raised a fist to the sky. "Let's go home, brothers." Frost dropped his visor. "Let Nevada know who keeps these roads." Then Saint rolled the throttle. The column moved. Steel pillars, lights, pipes, 200 bikes became one river of iron flowing down US 95, carving through the burning sunset like they were splitting the desert in half. The river twisted along the highway, blazing through dust stretching miles with no end, an endless iron snake carrying the oath of 200 souls. Leia stood at the fire station door hugging her little vest, watching that river of light disappear over the hills. She wasn't shaking anymore, because tonight, for the first time in her life, she knew she was no longer alone in the dark. And far away, in the thunder blending with desert wind, Saint's voice still echoed through the sky. "Kid, the world's got monsters, but as long as we ride, you'll never face them alone." If you want to keep reading more biker stories full of heart like this one, don't forget to hit that subscribe button right now, and drop a quick comment so I know you're still riding with them on these firelit roads.